All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Lake Task Force. We don't have, or we're going to review and consider approving prior minutes for the 8/29 meeting and the 1/4/24 meeting.
I don't think we have minutes for 1/4. There were minutes from 8/29 that Jack did. I did not resend them out.
Do you remember reading?
I could print them if we
No,
don't.
so I can't read emails, no, so I didn't read them. You want to synopsize them?
Hang on. I might actually have them. Oh,
I didn't bring them with me.
So here, he put it on the screen, he put attendance. And then. Oh.
Yes, sir.
There's more.
Yeah, there's more.
Thank you, Jack.
So I need a motion to approve the minutes from the 8/24 meeting.
I make a motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we don't have minutes from the 1/4 meeting,
No,
and then we had met on
And that's it.
the 21st, but there was only 3 of us, so.
right.
So we can move into the agenda. First thing on the agenda would be new business. We don't have any new business. We can move on to old business. First discussion would be annual weed treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I just put a bunch of placeholders of stuff that come up, so I think. I know there was an email about the weed treatment They sent over an estimate, right, to conservation, I mean, I assume Concom's handling it.
Yeah, 44,900. And then we're gonna specify to do it before June 10th,
Yeah,
so that it doesn't affect the beach. Carl just needs to sign off and they'll do the order of conditions.
were they gonna do a new full order of conditions, or are they just gonna operate under the existing?
I think they're just gonna extend, they have to do it through the state,
Yeah,
so I think they're just gonna extend it. But we can add more conditions if we wanted to when that comes up, but I don't know what we would.
yeah, the only reason I mentioned it was a huge mess, they couldn't find the paperwork, they signed some extension, and I think that we ended up having the Concom like vote again to issue a new extension with the old dates, because they couldn't produce the document because it got lost in the transition. And it sounded like every so often you had to do a whole new public hearing. I don't think we're gonna do it this year, just something to keep in mind, I think eventually it's gonna have to be
Yeah.
discussed more in depth.
I think the company said they would handle it.
Yeah.
So whatever comes my way, but
What did you say the cost was, 44,000?
$4,990. But we have it,
It's
it's in the Concom budget to treat it
Oh, I'm just for my own notes, and then you said June 10th,
by June 10th.
by June 10th.
Yeah, whatever they use now, you actually basically can swim right away, but they usually close it for a day just because they don't want people like swimming behind the boat. So
Yeah.
And you
it's just a 1 day closure. So
So is that for the milfoil and pond weed?
The aquatic species, I can forward the estimate, but I think Dan was also
I
on
can
the,
find it, so give me 1 second. Look at 2 things here. Save the minutes, what was it? We.
not,
No,
not quote.
Yeah, I would imagine, I mean, I don't know, here it is, unless this group has recommendations, I assume it's just the same treatment. You know, if Concom needs to talk about it, they could do that at their meeting too. Treatment of variable milfoil and bushy pondweed will be conducted. Dicot, trade names, blah, 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 and Captain XTR will be applied. So this is pretty much the same exact thing they do every year. Nothing new, nothing.
Folks.
At a meeting.
I think. it must
Because
be-
that includes the flea treatment report and the report in the fall as well, so.
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to do that. I will put those documents on the website. I've been trying to do any reports and stuff.
Any other discussion on the annual weed treatment?
No.
Okay, next on the agenda, water level monitoring.
So I have, and again, I have not, probably need to call the company, but I think Isabella found some equipment to set up an electronic monitoring station, probably somewhere near the beach to just log the water level.
Yeah, they kind of look,
I think it's fairly cost effective.
there's, this is the picture, there's 2 of them. And so there's 2 different options depending on, you know, whose budget it's coming out of and how much we wanted to pay, but we can do one that we just put in that monitors and you go and offload the data with USB, or you could buy one with a sensor and Bluetooth and it would direct, like send.
What's the cost difference between those?
So the one to manually would be $360, and then the Bluetooth one is $720. But
How many would you need?
depends on when we want to set them up. So if we wanted to do like lake height, it could be definitely by the beach, and then wherever, then out by the outflow, we could do another one. Or if we wanted to do consistent where we're gonna do E. coli testing, do the same 6.
Yeah, I guess my my interpretation was that the goal would be to have data on the actual height of the water in relation to sea level, just as a statistic. So I don't think it matters as long as we're measuring, because I think the lake would be the same level for the most part.
Sub levels.
But I think for somewhere around $1,000, I think it's money well spent to set something up. If you do it near the beach, you have access to the existing Wi-Fi, so you're not paying for some monthly cellular bill. And then I think separately, we might also look at some analog options as well. I don't know,
Where would funding come for this?
was the parks, we appropriated $5,000 for testing, which I think could go towards some of this, and then the testing equipment.
Because you are in monitoring testing.
I think Board of Health has some money, or we can certainly put something else in the warrant if we think we need money in
That's
there.
where I was going with this. If we don't have money to do it, now's the time to get it on the warrant.
I mean, to be quite honest, for under $1,000, we could even just pay it on the parks budget. That's, to me, that's money well spent. You know, it's one thing if we're talking about spending 10 grand on something, but stuff like this, I think, is peanuts for what we get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do too, because it, for pretty little money, I mean, you're getting good reports.
So in order to spend that out of the park budget, you'd have to talk to the other commissioners to make sure they're on board with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure. I suppose they can review it too. I don't think it's a big deal,
No,
like just
just
approvals. I think
approvals, the proper
the money was
approvals.
already,
So they're not going, okay, Dan, why did you spend $1,000 on this and you didn't check with us?
Yeah, so I think if we do wanna do one of the hobo devices,
Can you email me?
I can
just the-
forward it.
Yeah, just send me the, information on the different ones you were looking at, so we can take a look at them.
yeah, I think I want to call them and find out exactly. I think in an ideal world, you'd have a sensor linked up to some sort of a unit that just logs. I don't, we don't want to have to be going there and downloading data. I don't want to think about it.
No, just got something that's Bluetooth and.
Sure.
Even if we're paying, $100 a year or something for some portal, I think it's worth it.
There's been a lot of concern about, the beavers and the dam in the back and whatnot. This way here, we can at least monitor water level and see whether or not, there's a significant water height change.
Did you get a chance to talk? I know you were gonna maybe try and connect with Fred.
Fred has, some medical issues right now, and it's still cold out, so I figured I'd wait until
Yeah.
right around March, April. It'll be nicer out, it'll be before the weeds all start growing, and it'll be a nice, walk in the back there to see what's going on.
Cause I think we could benchmark. There's a lot of spots around the lake too, where there's like, the retaining wall next to Kinsley. Where even if we had to pay a couple $100 to have him give us the official height of those points, and then, you just get a measuring tape and spray paint some lines.
Right, and I think he has, historic measurements from in the past. He told me that
Oh,
he
cool.
has
Fred
measurements.
Shea.
For lap.
For Lapham. Right, sorry.
Yeah, he said he has, measurements at where his office is, and I believe he said he has measurements at the outflow, so that's what I'm interested in seeing, is whether we can pull those back into some kind of identifiable markings.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that outflow. My understanding, it was something done by the Corps of Engineers all those years ago, and it's just there. But whether there's maintenance or calibration or work,
Well, that's just it, it's, maybe it does need to be cleaned out, like dredged out to
yeah.
actually get it back to a functioning water flow mechanism. And that's something that we'll have to look at. Get Fred's recommendations and see whether or not it makes sense to what kind of work it needs in order to be better functioning.
Yeah, I will, I think that's good. I have to contact this company and get them to give us an actual quote on just everything we need and find out what the cheapest option would be.
Well, the other thing is you might even be able to give them a diagram of the lake and get their opinion on it.
Yeah, I think calling them, help us set it up.
Yeah, because it's like, it's all these components, you get like the sensor and then the unit. And then it probably needs to be installed, like, if we like put a pipe in the ground or something to kind of protect it, or find somewhere it can go that it's not gonna get disturbed.
And you'd have to find out whether or not it has to come out in the winter.
Sure it will.
Yeah, I don't know.
You get frozen in there.
Yeah.
If we ever get ice.
Yeah, they take it out probably around October at the end of the season. And then sometimes you need to put them in a cage because the snapping turtles like wires.
Good, hopefully, I don't think we have turtles.
You absolutely
Yes,
do.
Jerry.
Yeah, what are you
I
talking-
stepped on one out on the
So
island.
huge.
Yeah, well, so they
I
don't
saw
get a
the
beach
tiny
now.
babies on the beach.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not like I stepped on a huge
That's right.
Snapper?
It's
when I
not,
was
yeah.
fishing out there.
Oh,
They're up there.
I
and
thought it
big,
was a rock, I was like, no.
And I
that's not.
go,
Amazing how quick they can move though, isn't it?
put something on your toes.
I mean, the next thing you got on here is kind of goes hand in hand with this, and that's water testing.
Yeah, so same with the water testing, I had thought we could buy like tabletop equipment, and then Isabella researched, like a handheld device with sensors that would collect certain parameters, which might be a little more approachable. So that's like one aspect of be doing our own. And again, I think I haven't had time to really dive into this and talk to them yet. It potentially can be pretty expensive. I think, you potentially $5,000 for this machine.
Yeah, I mean, that would be more based on what the long-term goals of Lake are to have in-depth whole water column testing. And then you'd get DO pH conductivity. You got the newest ones, they have phosphate and nitrate on them. And that's kind of, if we're getting algae blooms or high runoff and stuff like that, those are all good indicators. And so these are the things that, we're paying people $5,000 a year for, and these devices don't break if they're well maintained.
So you're saying we're spending $5,000 right now to have somebody else do it, when we could spend $5,000 to do it ourselves?
Well, yeah, Board of Health.
$5,000 one time and then do it ourselves.
You assume the liability, but yes. Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
Before 45, 49 goes in, right now there's not a lot, well, I mean, there's runoff, yes. But when you have all those houses up there that are gonna go in and all the fertilizer and everything, that's gonna follow that down to the lake. Do we want to get any kind of readings before that happens? And then when it happens, get something so that we have a recordable instance?
When's that slated to happen?
Well, they're putting the road in now.
So that actually relates to what I was gonna say.
We're talking maybe a year before you start seeing houses that people are living in and putting fertilizer down.
Well, they don't even have planning board approval for that, so it's like
Right.
a while
I mean, my
out.
point is, we get the money we have some time to do it if we get the money and start testing it now before that happens. Then you know that you have your baseline to build off of.
Right, and that's, I'm just trying to bring up a bullet point of there's going to be a lot more activity, and as a task force, we need to be aware of it.
This is almost the annual town meeting, bring it up and say, just explain, listen, like we just talked about, we spend $5,000 a year to have somebody come and test the water when we can buy our own equipment at $5,000 one time, and then we can do it ourselves. And then there goes your $5,000 every year that you don't have to worry about it.
So the other thing that could happen too is, I think the Lake Association is very involved, and they might do a fundraiser or something like that would help to do that, and,
They already offered assistance in this, I thought,
Well,
the
hang on,
last meeting.
sorry, before we walk way back, because I think I should have taken this the other approach. The other part of testing is I do think we should continue to work with Microbac to do official state certified lab testing. Because the problem you're gonna run into, and actually I'm glad you brought that up, so we can do all the testing in the world next to a development the first thing they're gonna say is that, did that come from a lab? Nope,
Right.
get lost.
Right.
So and Board of Health has an existing budget for testing. And I think it's sat there for a year and we've never quite come up with a plan. So I had talked to Isabel and Jack about just trying to come up with like a baseline schedule for Microvac to come out and take, maybe they just come out once a month and take 7 or 8 samples. And then this piece of equipment would let us do additional testing on top of that. And like, I don't think we were gonna have Microvac do dissolved oxygen or any of that. Just test for, contaminants in the water.
Well, I think you'd wanna do bi-weekly testing, just cause over the summer, June is gonna get a lot hotter, so you want at least June, July, August, bi-weekly. And I would say, you got DO, pH, conductivity, total dissolved solids, and then ammonia and nitrate. And I think getting those from a lab points around, if we were to do the sensor ourselves, it would be kind of the middle of the lake of like long-term study.
Right.
You get the fluctuations of like when people did their fertilizer, septic and stuff. But yeah, I think you would still need some lab qualified testing.
And what about the geese? We
So
putting
that
any
was,
more thought into
that
those?
was a discussion in the meeting that we had in November. One of the big things that we talked about in November was public outreach, because there are people on the lake that feed the geese. You feed them, they get accustomed to the food, they're not gonna leave.
Right.
And there goes the problem with your water quality right there. So we need to start, we talked about public outreach to just let people know, hey, this is what happens when you feed the geese. And they pass that down from generation to generation. So those geese will no longer go south, they'll stay
Right.
because there's a food source. So we need, I think we had talked about getting Board of Health involved with that and doing some sort of public outreach for that.
Because I know people have tried wires on their property to try and keep them away, and what, owls or something like that is supposed to keep them away, or hawks or something.
Yeah.
So I have to go back, so you think we should add in dissolved oxygen to this from the lab?
They typically do it because that's one of the easier ones to do, but if we ever had like a big fish kill or those kinds of signs, then you can trace it to the dissolved oxygen.
Because the pricing I got, so this is for, it would be E. coli, phosphate, total, I don't know how you say this, congenital nitrogen, nitrate plus nitrite nitrogen. And then the two of those combined give you a third number, which we're gonna get into now. So all of that plus a single collection fee, so that means we take all the samples and put them in a pile for them to pick up, that's $227.25, and that's 6 locations. If they go do the samples themselves at each location, it's $630 every time they get out of the vehicle. And then
So
I
it's
had-
630 times 6?
So it's either if we go take the samples ourselves and we pick these points that they're accessible from mostly public shoreline and bring them all to one location,
Right, like.
and they just
like
come
the
take
snack
it.
shack.
Right, it's it's $227. Or if we just say, we want you to do all the work for us, it's $600 for all of that. Because you're paying $80.
Aren't you testing the water anyways?
They are coming to the lake only during the
No, I'm
lake.
saying, aren't you testing the water anyways?
What do you mean?
Like, haven't you been testing it yourself and sending? stuff
Right, so
out?
they pick it up, they come out, so we could do that, I had picked the 6 spots, I said the town beach, the
Yeah,
old tap.
we had a map that had them on.
Yeah, I had asked Jack, and this is a while ago, I haven't looked into it.
Can you clarify that? So you put the water in the bottle and you bring it and they pick it up?
So right
There you
now,
go.
with the state required E. coli testing, they show up, they go in the water, they scoop the sample up and
Okay,
they,
so they
they do it all.
themselves, okay.
some of the repeat samples I have done because if you don't schedule them, they can't come out within 24 hours
And repeat samples.
Like when it fails.
High and low?
when it fails and we do a repeat. So sometimes we have done it. And then they just come pick it up or there's varying ways it gets done. I guess my point is the town set aside money, the Board of Health has a decent chunk of money. that I think it's worth coming up with some sort of base level of testing that they do every month, every 2 weeks, whatever it is. That may involve some involvement from us, and just start collecting this information, then we can separately buy the equipment and do some of our own testing. Which it sounds like this meter is probably the better way to go than building our own laboratory. I think it's gonna get too complicated to figure out staffing versus, it sounds like this thing, you just sit there in the boat and toss it overboard and push a button.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's also like, if we do wanna do more outreach, it's good, volunteer activity, you have a group on a boat, you hand off the device to everyone and everyone can do it together. But yeah, I mean,
It's just a liability.
That's a
yeah,
good thing.
that is a liability.
So if you're putting the public on a boat, that is the town,
That's
there's
true.
a liability there.
Yeah,
Well, so here, let me put up these locations
you can do it around the shoreline then.
just to
and then
see.
That's not a bad idea though, so that as turnover.
Have them sign a waiver.
That's true.
I don't have the map, unfortunately. I was waiting, I never followed up with Jack, but these are all locations that can be accessible, just from somebody standing on the shore and walking in. There's a couple ways to talk to Wayne Phipps. But I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about spots that are equidistant around the lake. Yeah, I probably have it on paper.
Is Nipmuc Cove still viable now that it's being developed?
I'm not sure, what do you mean by Nipmuc Cove?
Isn't that,
So here, let me,
Alicante?
yeah. I guess again, my goal was to pick points that were equidistant around the lake,
Okay.
regardless of, and I think to try and use the ones and orient myself. So this is like the Nipmuc, or no, Old Taft.
Oh, okay.
This is what I meant by Nipmuc Cove was over here.
Oh, okay.
The beach. What did I pick?
Now, with, this is,
I think this is Grandview. I don't know what I meant. No, Nipmuc Drive Cove. What the heck did I mean?
okay, so that's Route 16. Where's?
Nipmuc Drive is right off of Oxford Road.
I think I doubled up on these.
Right, which it turns into Park Street, right?
Yes.
And that should be right here, no?
But I think, so I think what I was intending was the town beach, this area by Old Taft that everybody keeps complaining about. This is that area by the intersection of Nipmuc Drive and Oxford Road.
Okay.
Then, yeah, Grandview, which is over here, because you can just get permission from them and walk right to the water's edge.
Remember.
And then there's 2 points on Kinsley, which I believe were actually like here and here.
Right.
Because again, we can talk to a homeowner, just the road is right there.
Yeah, I think, either Linda or Wayne are right in that area anyways, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in that cove right by 16.
But I don't know if there's other spots that
Linda is,
people are
Wayne's
concerned about.
Wayne's off of Kinsley.
Yeah, so he's over here, right?
Yeah, I think these are this is the dots that the official study used. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 of them.
I'm sure he would gladly do that.
Yeah, he would.
He has a pontoon board, I'm sure if we gotta do testing every 2 weeks, he'd be like, all right, let's go.
Who is it?
Wayne Phipps.
Oh, yeah.
They give him an excuse to.
As long as he's not playing Christmas music.
Hey, you gotta do what you.
So I guess we have to, I mean, if we can collect the samples, it's not a lot of money at all.
Yeah, I was also gonna suggest, I think Upton also has a lake task force. So you could see if they want to do it as well, and then do the joint pickup or something. But I mean, yeah, I'm happy to take samples.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chunk of time, they're already coming out every single week. So it's not, I don't think it would just be a matter of physically going around and collecting all the water, which, right now, whether we need to sample in January or not, might not be great, but.
No, you typically do it starting like May, maybe.
Right, when the sun makes the algae blooms pick up.
So would we do like
When the lake.
May or even
floods.
earlier?
I don't know, yeah, the first one could be May, and then I would say twice in June, twice in July, twice in August, and then September could be the last one, if you're doing,
Well, if you did May through October times 2, that's 10 times 227, that's nothing.
$27.
Yeah, that's fine, and I think the Board of Health has more than 10 grand,
yeah.
so I would say, at least I think that's worth it. And then we can do.
And that's if we get our own equipment?
This would be, no, this would be us filling up sample bottles, which are
Okay.
cheap,
And having a lab.
and paying the lab to do these official
So
tests.
from all these,
Yeah, not all those points though.
okay.
Get rid of the one, I think,
Expose.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 spots. I think I got rid of one of them. I forget which one now. I think this one. So I think the town beach is 1.
Yeah.
This Old Taft is
Yeah.
2. This area over by 16 and Nipmuc Drive is 3. Alicante or Grandview is 4. Down the end of Kinsley in the 40s would be 5. And then somewhere over here on Kinsley is 6. Because there's no way to get here without going in the water or going all the way through somebody's property.
Wayne would be 40s, right? Just off of this dock.
Yeah, the one upper on Kinsley, you can just go right there off the road. And then further down Kinsley, we'd have to talk. I put down Wayne or Dave Lair, there's a few people over there. I'm sure would be happy to give permission. You know,
How much water do you have to collect and how far down do you go?
that, I will have to follow up with the lab on the specific procedure for each one of these. There's all sorts, like the E. coli is 100 ml cup of water. I'm not sure the other ones.
So typically a bottle like this big
Right.
From
you know,
each spot,
even with-
that's it, or for each test?
for,
Each spot.
Probably each
Well, it would
test.
be
like
based on what I
A
type.
bottle of water for each
Could be,
spot?
could be 700 or 800 ml bottles for each spot.
Yeah,
With
but
one,
it's
two,
high
three,
surface, or do you have to go down a certain depth?
I mean, we wouldn't be doing like. Yeah, so that's where temperature and DO maybe don't need them, you just need the nitrate and phosphate. But again, they'll give the best advice when we like call saying we want an actual estimate.
I know the guy, when he does the lake, he has waders. They wear waders, they go out to like, waist deep and you open it underwater. That's the E. coli one. It's just more of a representative sample, because I think this would help us understand, like for me, I would love to know if it's just E. coli that's high or if other stuff is high. That might point us in the right direction.
So we're gonna get estimates for water monitoring equipment and water testing.
So maybe just to recap, so I will, because I can follow with Microbac, so May through October, bi-weekly testing for E. coli, phosphate, the TKN, the nitrate. And then one collection fee for all the locations. And that's for Microbac. And then this YSI thing, again, I think we've got to talk to them and understand
Yeah.
which one of these, it seems like there's a bunch of different products and
I mean, I would just
which sensors. we
also
need.
air that the hobos for you can do PHDO and the lake
Oh,
height.
yeah,
So I would definitely say getting 1 or 2 or a couple of those. And then the YSI, that would, if you were to do like lake column, that would be like if, it can't just be me committed to wanting to use it, it would have to be like the lake task force effort of wanting to use that moving forward. So I'm happy to do it while I'm here, but I don't think the conservation agent position would be long-term doing that. But just,
maybe it's worth just starting with the water level monitoring and this testing. And then go from there, and we don't have to spend, we have money that's available as we learn more. Because, to spend all $5,000 on one machine is a lot. Especially if it's just gonna sit on a shelf.
so you pawn it off.
So the DO though, you have to, dissolved oxygen, you have to go, that matters where you do it.
But I think if you had the sensor, you wouldn't need to pay for water testing if you have it in the sensor.
Yeah, I'm just looking at these, because there's some other these YSIs that are much cheaper that we can look into. Like if we just wanted dissolved oxygen pH, $1,000.
Yeah.
If we don't need to worry about all these additional parameters that I don't know, let me look again, which ones of these are like relevant to what we're doing or not.
I mean, to your point, we can
Ammonium.
set up a schedule so that we can go over how this is supposed to be done the correct way, and then we have a schedule of people that from this task force or even like the Buckets Association that want to help out with this, and then it has to be done. This is when it needs to be done, it's your turn, you're responsible for it at that time.
Yeah, because as Dan said, the legitimacy, you know, you might, if you were to start doing your own testing, you might want like a scientific advisor to write the report at the end of the year, rather than, that could be like Blackstone River Coalition or like someone who can analyze data.
Have we ever asked the, I forget their name, Water and Wetland, like, would they quote us something to just come out and take some of these more environmental samples?
Yeah, so they can do more
I mean,
parameters, you know, because I just wanted to do
Yeah.
DO for the whole, they only do the surface because we don't specify anything.
because I know, not to spend your budget, but Concom has a pretty big chunk of change in that lake testing thing too, that maybe there's more they can do for us. Because again, we should put them on the website. They have some reports that are interesting that talk about the lake and.
Has anybody thought about, since this is a state recognized pond, you know, Lake Nipmuc is a great pond, that, is there any state money available for any of this?
Sure there is.
I haven't, so there was some sort of a grant program that I think actually would pay for some testing, but I don't know if it's current. I'll have to try to
Or
find
would
it
they,
again.
would they pay for monitoring equipment?
That's what I think it was related to. I'll have to look into it some more. But I think, you know, we have money for what we're trying to do right now.
I was gonna say, there was a dredging
Oh, yeah.
program. I can forward the information from that side, but it was, I think it closes March 1st, so it's like if any, I don't know if we wanna get together to write a grant by March 1st. But that included dredging, dam removal, and a whole bunch of different things, and I think Lake Nipmuc would fit the requirements if we did put together a proposal. And you can also do it with multiple towns. So we could see if Uxbridge or Upton wanted to also write, like co-author a grant. But that would just be for more money.
Yeah, we should, when was that workshop? I don't know what that's really something. So maybe we could talk about that.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Let me, you know, let me look into this now that we have.
It's very important to have the testing. They have a lot of those. I was talking about
What,
Queen Sigmund, the things that they put out that took they were like, they looked like, almost like, things that you'd shoot from a boat, but they were floaters. And they had solar, things that they did all the testing with. That was at the lake, but they were pretty expensive.
here, there is a grant. It's due, this was due in November. So if we wait, this probably will come around again. It looks like it's every year. It has to do with seeking proposals for blah, 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 for innovative projects that will help multiple communities. Oh, this is about the stormwater stuff. So I don't know if I'll have to read some of these.
There is water quality grants, but
I-
it'd just be,
The thing is, the lake, I think they're looking for stuff that like if this was a drinking water supply, if this was part of, you know, the Charles River watershed, that have a more wider impact. But I'll read through these, because I do remember seeing some sort of a grant for water monitoring.
well, typically you can do ecosystem health, so having evidence of invasive species or fish kills and things like that are typically enough, and then. Yeah, I don't know what the dam on the outflow looks like, but also qualify if it's municipal.
Now, would it also qualify if it's weeded in where you have to dredge it in order to get the water to flow to the outflow better?
Probably, because that would be maintenance. I would assume it would.
Because from everything I've heard from anybody that's been back there, says it's very difficult to get back there, it's very weeded in, very problematic.
I think it's a field trip. I feel like that's.
Well, what did you learn on that? I know it didn't, I guess it falls under one of these. Did you go to that workshop about the dredging? Like, is that something that we could look into?
I read through all the paperwork, so we would need to submit the proposal by March 1st. Which they do, I guess, but
Is that an annual thing? So
yeah, it's annual,
we could wait a year.
yeah. But it's,
I mean, and that may just be a thing, a situation too, where like we as a group are recommending saying, hey, we need some funding to clean up this area.
because I think, as you're saying about the weeds, that's, you know, typically for the Lake Nipmuc reports and the one that was funded by the tree removal, those all end up saying that, weed management is one of the recommendations.
That sounds like it's more Clumpy Islands now, though, not just weeds, water weeds. And like I said, I'm looking forward to going back there with Fred to see exactly what's back. I've never been back there.
Let me know when you're going. I'd love to walk back there.
Do you just walk or do you have to go with?
You get permission from Hans Farm, from what I understand, or you go through there and order to get back. And I'm assuming that you're gonna need high boots or something, because from everything I'm hearing is that it's a chore to get back there. And that's why I want to do it before the brambles come in and the leaves come in and all of the, whether or not you're gonna run into a bee's nest.
It'd be interesting to see spring machete.
You really wouldn't need one in the winter, though, is what you're saying, right? If you went like in
If
March.
you're early spring, right, before things start popping. But before the rainy season too.
So it's
It's
back
been,
here.
the rainy season has already been here.
It's on this.
Yeah. And I'm thinking it's like way back here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
Some of their plans and stuff, I haven't seen in years.
and that's, again, like I said,
And where exactly are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, sorry, hang on.
You know where the old ice house is? The Wagner Ice House on the back
Oh,
side
yeah.
of the lake?
Yeah,
That cove in there.
oh, yeah, okay,
So it's the outflow of the lake.
yeah.
I think it's this, like down here.
and that wraps around going
It
towards
switches
Pleasant
back.
Street, doesn't it?
It's.
But it's Meadowbrook, so I wonder if you could get to it from the conservation plan.
You can get to it from Fred Phipps's
Yeah.
camp on the backside of the lake.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, Patrice knows more, there's probably this little strip here, there's access to this property, but I mean, it sounds like the people in this area are willing to work with us too, so.
I mean, you can see Fred's camp. The little gray thing in the middle of the woods there. And it's pretty close to
Over here,
where you need to, no,
or,
a little bit down towards the cove.
oh. In the way,
Down towards the cove, see where it's on the left-hand side?
Is that the camp right on the point?
No. Right,
oh,
yeah, that right there is his camp.
So
He has a camp.
yeah, because it's just like a landlocked, must be.
So there's an access road right to that camp, and then
Yeah,
you may have fished in there, been in there, canoed down that,
Meadowbrook.
yeah, the brook. That's what you wanna call it.
Can you get through there?
backside of this lake, doesn't it?
When you get through,
Yeah.
right, you can only go so far.
Well, John, does it make sense, since you have some exposure to it, does it make sense to think about some kind of dredging or some kind of maintenance schedule to bring a healthier water conditions of that area.
Well, I think even Inman Hill, they typically have volunteer coordinate, and then you all just get in kayaks and you hand break it out. So it could be like a.
That's been successful
Yeah.
with, and I bet it'd be even more successful on this lake. In terms of seeing, I'm sure people would be happy to show up and help, for half a day. And I think she has a waiver they use that town council approves, so they're able to do that.
Right, any other discussion on the water testing? Hearing none, we'll move on to septic issues, enforcement, and updated regulations. Joyce?
Well, I have some, pages that Jack gave me that will show the people that are not reporting their septic system.
So you're familiar with
Yeah,
what they're doing?
so I'm gonna give you that, and you can pass it down to those two.
These are all the same?
Yeah, yeah. Here, yeah. You have it already, don't you? You have it?
So this is that hidden list cut down to just,
Well, this is the ones that have not
Right.
reported. So we've gotten,
yeah,
we've
there you go.
gotten some, way down into the program, but we've got quite a few people here who just haven't done anything at all, and a lot of them have tight tanks, and you're just hoping that, they haven't reported anything, like just on Kinsley Lane, down Rachel Lambert, 2022. They had it.
Right, at least.
Pumped, but did they have it pumped and not tell anybody? But we've sent out letters to every single person. Twice, yes, this is true. So we were talking about, you and I going.
Well, I've had conversations with Jack and Colleen about this as well. It's like going around and start knocking on these doors and saying, okay, you guys don't want to respond to the letters. What's going on here? I need to know
Right,
what the status of your system is.
right.
Some of these are really 1995.
Yeah, no kidding.
But on the flip
So they
side,
haven't had it pumped since 95, or
There's nobody's
they've not reported it.
Well, this, you're looking at the last pump, right?
Yeah.
In there, in the beginning.
I mean, besides all those ones that say no records, which is,
Right, yeah,
oh my goodness, that's awful, people.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, even if they've been pumped, if there's something from 1980,
Right, yeah.
it's not
And
up
if
to
they're-
par
and if
being
they're-
that close to the lake.
If they're tight tanks, they should be pumped, they're like pumped every 2 months or 3 months, depending upon, who's living there.
So that brings up the question. If they're not having them pumped, they don't need to have them pumped, then
Right.
they must be leaking. Or they're just not telling us that
Right,
they've been pumped.
Do we know whether or not these are year-round residents or just summer
doesn't
camps?
matter.
It doesn't matter, we still need to have the record.
there's one that I know is vacant beyond that. I think most
Most
of
of
it,
that, Nelly.
41 Taft, nobody's done that. But so here's a question actually, not to, we want to get into the, whatever, so 41 Taft Ave, that was the property that had that whole massive fiasco with the illegal dumping and the landlord and the whole disaster.
Which is it, which number?
41 Taft.
Oh, yeah.
But how come after all that happened, we still don't have an updated pumping record? Like somebody showed up that day to pump the tank per order of the town, did they not?
Well, we don't know that
I
because,
thought we ordered it and had to put lime down and didn't they like pump the effluent over the neighbor's fence? It was a whole police matter.
and when was that?
Oh, maybe it was before you went on board, I'll
I
ask.
think it, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't-
the tenant, apparently, the tank overflowed, and the tenant decided the best course of action was to put their sump pump in the tank and pumped it over the neighbor's fence. And the police got involved, they had to get a search warrant, because she had a restraining order against the owner. And the town, I think, had to bring somebody in to clean it up and then bill them for, it was a whole disaster. It was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's not
I
here.
weren't near there, I didn't hear anything.
Well, I'm sure you've had dealings with the person that used to be living there.
Might have been.
I have one next to me,
He's gone now.
he's there. And I don't, number,
Well, hang on, we save that for off the, don't say that for recording,
no, I know,
but,
but there's plenty.
so I
Well, I
don't,
mean, you can just tell me the number.
33.
What did you say?
33.
33. My hearing, I think, is going now.
What?
Yeah.
I do think, to pass on, so I know from the Parks Commission, they would be interested in looking at properties that are near to the beach, if there's any sort of priority on these, but,
Oh, so we're gonna talk to Jack
yeah.
and Colleen and get out there and start knocking on doors. Because it'd be nice to get this down to nothing and
Right,
have steps
yes.
on all of these. The other thing that we had discussed was putting in that regulation that, if you transfer ownership from so it's a family transfer, right now, they're not required to do a septic inspection, but we were talking about trying to put something in that says, if John Smith wants to transfer it to his son, when he does that, there needs to be a septic inspection. If they live, we'd have to decide,
Right,
but around the lake,
100 feet.
Right.
right.
Have you, is that something that could be done through a Board of Health regulation?
That's
or
what
would it be a bylaw?
we're going to do that.
Okay, so we don't need to go all the way to the town meeting, you guys have the power.
Yeah.
I also think there's some communities, I don't know specifically in Mass, but I know they're starting around lakes, requiring nitrogen fixing tanks. And so if there's grant money, we could see about trying to or encourage people to upgrade their tanks to newer systems that release less nitrogen.
I had wondered if there was a way to use CPA funds to set up some sort of a program, but it sounds like it's potentially very complicated because it's technically private. So I don't know, I think at a minimum, you could probably use CPA funds to do Title V surveys. But even that is tricky, whether people would agree to that or not.
But the problem is, this is their responsibility.
Right.
This is the reason that they're living there, it's their property, they have to take care of it, and it's interfering with the rest of this part of the lakes and the neighbors and all of the above, so, I mean, we have a lot of leeway, to get them to do what they're supposed to do. And if they don't do it, I do believe that they can be forced to vacate their house, so.
any questions on that?
Okay, so there's nothing from this group, it's just Board of Health. It's
No, and I mean, I told them that I would help them go knock on doors. It's like, I wouldn't want one person going and knock on
No,
doors, you know,
no.
it's two people.
And I definitely wouldn't want to be the one woman.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
But I
and
take
then
you
don't
with
take
me.
offense to it, send a woman out to do it, you're gonna have a lot of, especially you just said, yeah.
Absolutely, I mean, I would
Just
not,
go to be the body standing there and
right,
if it's Colleen that decides to go as the health agent, and I'll just be there as
right,
backup for her.
right.
I don't know how to, maybe not to put this on you, but maybe some of these people are somewhat active in the Lake Association, perhaps it's worth having a
I
conversation.
don't think the real
Well,
these people are they?
Like I see one name that comes to our meetings all the time. So maybe, are they aware that
Mhm.
those records aren't on file, and maybe they have no idea.
Maybe not, I know, yeah,
You
that's
know.
true.
I know I see other people on this list too, I know they just don't read their mail when it comes from the town, so. But if you pick up the phone and call the guy, he'll probably talk to you.
Didn't the Lake Association want to send out a mailer and be able to put it on either doors or mailboxes? stating that there's specific rules and regulations pertaining to the lake.
I put that as an item too.
We did send a letter out in the beginning explaining about the septic systems in particular. I mean, not anything else, but saying that you are required, if you have a tight tank, you are required to have it pumped, at certain intervals. We have to have the records, it needs to come to blah, 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 and, a lot of people did it. Because there are more people.
As of 11/27, there was a 68% response rate.
So a lot of people
A
did it.
lot of people did respond
But-
and gave the
But these
information.
people that I just handed you paperwork of did not
Right.
respond twice. They didn't respond.
And has he, just because like I see one of these, is he getting the most current stuff from the assessor's office in terms of mailing addresses?
I would
Because
assume
like
so.
10, yeah, because like 10, this one that caught my eye, 10 Taft Peterson, they sold
Eric, he just sold it, yeah,
recently though, so.
yeah, he just sold it.
And he's on the other side.
But actually, so that's what, there should have been a
There
title
are,
five.
there are a lot on here that are on the other side,
Right, on the other side of the road.
and those are the ones I think you're gonna see have the septic system and not a tight tank.
Right.
Which is fine. So,
They just.
And I think that puts them out of the 100-foot buffer anyways, doesn't
Well,
it?
it doesn't matter. We want to know that their septic system has been,
Legally,
yeah,
everybody's supposed to.
correct. I get my
look
septic
at that
system
now.
pumped, I mean,
And it's the
every,
responsibility, of
right,
the person, the company that pumps it, to report it to the
Right.
Board of Health.
right.
Right.
And you can see
Yeah.
that it has happened at some point, they have reported it, but not in a timely, I mean, they've reported it when they've done it. However, that was like 2020, October 2019, 2022, August 1995, but it's not Gibson's job to go around and say to his clients, it's time to do your septic system. They have to be, that's gotta be something that they have to be responsible for.
Can I ask another question? And I don't know if this is backed in, at some point, there was something about having to have an agreement in place, but I don't know if that was like a recommendation, an actual requirement in terms of a tight tank. Like, am I required by law to have not just call Joe Schmo, but have an ongoing contract for service with somebody?
Right. Right. And your tight tank has a system that alarm,
Right.
it says, wah, wah, wah,
No, I
wah, wah, wah. And then,
I want to know.
wah,
We
wah.
have to get our space.
You have that?
Yeah, no, I know, because
So you can't not pump these.
well, you
Right.
can, you can.
Well, you
if
can
on
shut it
service,
off.
you can cut the line.
They shut the thing off,
Yeah,
they don't,
shut your alarm.
yeah. I mean,
Right.
wouldn't
Some
you
of
like
those
to
alarms
think
are
that
plug-ins.
they would be that way, but obviously,
Ours failed, and
some of them
that's why I
don't
switched
do
to
it,
ABC,
some of
because he
them
figured out how to fix the
actually
thing.
create like a hole and let it drain into the yard. And, I'm not saying that they do it here, but I have seen that, I mean,
I've
happen.
had a couple of people that have said to me that they suspect there are certain people, especially on
Easily,
Kinsley Lane,
Yeah.
that have done that with their tight tanks.
yeah,
I know Kevin Run will tell you, back in the day, there was some hurricane that came through and did whatever, and there were all these pipes along the shore all of a sudden. But back, 100 years ago, that's what people did.
yeah,
And so then, you never know if it was all that removed.
Right. right.
Interesting, all right, well,
But anyway, we're
So
trying
so
to
I
do
guess-
something,
I guess I will talk to Jack and Colleen and see when we want to start knocking on doors here and. get-
and
get
I'd be
answers.
happy to do it at the same time. See what we can do, because I'm really, I'm like a Pollyanna, so I think that, of course they're gonna do that, they're swimming in the pond. But,
There's disconnect.
well, I think, to give people the benefit of the doubt, because I've seen this with the water department, the seller says whatever they want to sell the property and the people buying it, although you'd think they should know these things, they have no idea what they're buying,
Right,
you know?
but that's the story, so we're trying to be on it, I mean, seeing what's happening and hopefully.
I'm curious, how did you get new pumping records from this process?
Yeah,
So that's good.
yeah.
All right. Review of chapter 91 public waterfront.
So I think, yeah, this is the one I
That was the one that we both
It's-
came and talked to
yeah.
him about, right?
I think is you got a bunch of info or,
Just kind of what it is,
Yeah, I mean, so, like, Nipmuc's a great pond, which makes it jurisdictional under chapter 91 and mass waterways. But there's still Concom jurisdiction, everything 100-foot upland is in the 100-foot buffer zone. And then Concom also regulates land underwater, so anything, all land under the water is also jurisdictional. So hypothetically, there should be a permitting process where you would come before the commission, get your dock permits or your, whatever you're doing on your waterfront, if you're putting up a stone wall. That would all need to come before the commission, and then you go and get the chapter 91 permit. And so if we wanna start digging around chapter 91, someone can call Mass Waterways and ask what's been regulated. A lot of the times, if you start fishing for that, people will say it's grandfathered in, it's been there since, I think it's before 1983.
1983.
And so then technically it can remain that way, but they can't update it, they can't keep, like, if it falls to disrepair, they can't put it back to how it was. And so that would kind of be a project.
Without the permit.
So they would have to apply for a permit, but those kinds of stone walls, those jetties or whatever is sticking out
all of these.
isn't allowed anymore. So they can't, they're not gonna let it fall apart because they're not gonna get a permit today for what they had. And so even like Kinsley Lane being on that road with the stone wall, that would all fall in because it technically can't be maintained the way it is. And so, yeah, you can, what I would suggest is trying to reach out to Mass Waterways and getting to know what has been permitted, if anything. And then we can kind of set up, there's certain size docks where under, I think it's 4 by 6 feet or something, a certain amount of square footage. That just needs a Concom permit, but anything bigger needs a Mass Waterways permit. And those are, I think they're yearly, which makes it interesting. The other fun thing about chapter 91 is technically public access should go the whole way around the lake, which would not be a fun thing to tackle.
If you have your own house there and,
Yeah.
you-
Or in front
The
of
public
Grant,
has the right to go around the lake.
in between
So
that.
like a 6-foot beachfront is allowed for the public.
So you can walk the high to low water mark around the whole lake, so it'd be like, yeah, people wouldn't walk in front of Grandview and stuff like that, but
But it's
that is
within the water, like the high water mark.
the high water mark, but at low tide, you could still walk up to the high water.
But I don't know how much the lake level changes like that it would be, but still.
Yeah.
I think that we're talking tides, but it's more of the low point that the water's been at.
The wet season and the dry season.
Yeah, well, that could be part of it.
So in the wet season, like we've been getting these 5-inch rainstorms, the water's gotta be higher than in
July.
July and August when there's no rain.
last summer.
Did you-
Yeah, we had no garden.
Mentioned there was maybe an opportunity to get someone to come and do like a workshop or something.
Yeah, there's, we can reach out to, I think it's Ecotech. They have a couple of people who deal with conservation commissions and chapter 91. So we wanted to try and see if they would come out and speak with us. I can reach out and see that. I don't think they'd do it pro bono. So I think we'd have to offer like whatever for an hour on like chapter 91 permitting.
Because, I mean, that was my takeaway from what, like Carl's approach was trying to educate us on, if it sounds like there's a process that we're supposed to be following here that isn't happening, and I know probably people are gonna be ticked about that, but
But it's their lake.
it's the,
You
the
you'd
rules are
like to
there.
think that kid wanted to. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we reach out to Ecotech and try to get a schedule for somebody to come in and educate us, because we are just floundering without the right information.
I got a second. There's a motion on the
I
floor.
would second that.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed?
I can't do anything.
I think, it's like a joint meeting with conservation, because I think they're the.
Not a bad idea,
enforcement.
they're the driving factor behind this.
Can't be.
Conservation will lapse this, so for everybody to have this information only benefits both boards.
exactly.
Yeah, I can reach out.
And the town, and the people that own the houses.
Well, the boards themselves benefit the town. So the town relies on us to have the right information to make the decisions necessary.
We have no information, so we have some. I don't want to say no information, because you brought a lot of information to the table tonight.
A lot of it's just my background, but,
We love it.
yeah, I can reach out and see what the consultant's availability would be. There's also Mass Conservation Commission, the nonprofit. They do a rent-a-consultant program, but they haven't done it in a while. But they said if the right people push, they'll start doing it again. So I can also reach out to those people and see what
It
it's
sounds like if somebody shows interest, they'll pick it up, but if nobody shows interest, they'll be happy to, like sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
We could book, if there was interest, we could book like the schools or something, if they wanted to do like a presentation that had people from surrounding towns.
That would be an idea, reach out to the other surrounding.
I don't know what other towns have need for this.
Yeah, I almost wonder if we could just get a state person, but I know they're really swamped with permits. It takes a long time to even get a permit through, which is why a lot of stuff kind of falls away, or falls to the wayside.
But again, I think even reaching out to the Lake Association, they would be happy to go to that meeting as well.
Right. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have on here as the next agenda item, rules, guidelines for use.
Yeah, this was just continuing if there was any more, this came up at that first meeting. I think Lake Nipmuc was interested in trying to put out something that, even if it was just advisory,
That's all it can be.
but I just fortunately I did some research too, that the process for having formal rules on the lake are complicated because it's a great
It was
pond.
that, I think it was that discussion about
But
being courteous, the
Yeah.
voting and everything else that goes on there in the summer, and the use of the lake is just.
Well, because the grand view was there and that guy was doing those weird things.
Yeah, I think you guys wanted to try and get speed limits posted too,
Yeah.
yeah?
But that's what.
But I don't, that's where it's difficult, and I don't think
Isn't it?
you cannot. Like, that has to be a regulation,
Like, who would enforce it?
and yeah. and-
Yeah.
The reading I
You
did,
would need
well, that's
the,
part of it.
what do you call it, the forestry, police
And-
to enforce that?
You're not gonna see that.
Right.
But the other problem is like, if you want a speed limit on the lake or you want to limit engine size, you have to go all the way to the
Well,
state.
I shouldn't say that, because if enough people complained and said there are people speeding on this lake and it's becoming a safety issue, and enough people do it, you will get somebody to come out there and start.
Right, you'll get
start
it for 2 or 3
controlling it.
days or a couple of
If you say,
weeks.
we put a speed limit up, can you guys come and patrol it? They're so short-staffed. Those guys, you're not gonna get them out there.
The other interesting thing is, can they sit on the shoreline with a radar gun and then just, you know,
Speeding tickets,
Curious, so like the incident that came up, does Mendon Police have jurisdiction if someone is operating a boat under the influence? You know, can they just observe the whole thing and wait for them to come to shore and handle it?
It's mass general law.
You know, and in a situation
I
like
will
that,
tell
where
you
I'm
right
assuming
now
it's
that
somebody out there breaking.
they're probably going to say, we're calling the environmental police and having them come out. But that's not to say that they don't have the jurisdiction to do it.
Just because that, you know, in that specific situation.
It's a
that
public
sort of thing
hazard.
was going on, I don't know, I mean, you're right, it won't get enforced really. So,
No, I think it's more about just,
at least,
guidelines, advisory,
Yeah.
remember that people live here, be courteous, and that's more of what it is.
I think also having the like Nipmuc task force, if you had like an emergency line where people know they could contact and voice their concerns could be good.
Give them the
well, so historic set up a voicemail box if we thought things reached that point.
I mean, it's not a bad idea to look into getting a number that
You can use the parks number, the office line.
somebody, so people can, and it doesn't have to be safety on the lake, it can be any concerns that people are seeing around the lake, illegal discharge or whatever it is, that they can report it anonymously, so
Right,
that we
and that
can,
would
we can
help.
at least look
Yeah.
into it.
That's right, because that would encourage them to do it anonymously.
that's the nice part that's going on with conservation right now is the lake residents are starting to reach out to us more and starting to say, can you look at this? This, you know, doesn't look like they have a permit or doesn't look like it's right. So we get a little bit more time to investigate.
Yeah, I don't know, it's nice, I'm sick of hearing like the stuff that happened, you know, like if people, you know, have concerns, they've got to send them to somebody, you know, even if anonymously,
Yeah,
it's
but so
fine.
then you get that phone call that,
Right.
oh, well, you know, I was out on the lake and so-and-so went by and they were drinking and they tipped my canoe over and they call our line and then nothing is done about it, then that's the issue. And we can't do anything about it, aside from tell them, but if we get that 3 hours later, that becomes the issue, it's like, well, I called and you guys didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, I don't think we
But,
need.
yeah, I mean, it
that
wouldn't be
yet,
like,
but-
maybe not online for like public nuisance, but like, I saw this pipe leaking or like this, I don't know, someone is consistently driving recklessly.
That's
And they
what I
tend to
was
do it on a
thinking,
Saturday afternoon.
repeat
Or-
offenders.
Yeah, because that was not anonymous, I was gonna say, we set up just a lake task force email that people can send to it, but then it's.
Well, the police already have a whole portal for that, and just maybe putting the messaging out there, you know, that see something, say something, like if that gets back to people on the lake too, like if you're aware of illegal dumping of things, you know, I report it to the things that are already in place. Just looking to see what's actually on the website. I seem to think there was something on here, like a anonymous contact us or something.
Can you not update the lakes and streams bylaw with more speed limits? Or you're just saying there's no.
So my reading of
City
the
would
state
fit?
law is that because this is a great pond, anything to do with the speed limit, we need to get the approval of the state before it can take effect. So we can
I have some
do that.
contacts in the environmental police that I can reach out to and talk to them about this and see what their
Yeah, it might
thoughts
be
are.
worth it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. They may come back and say, you know, it's just a process. I don't know what their position is. Like certain things you find are either supported or not supported, like like ATVs is a good one, like whatever you want, you know, for better or worse, when you get grants for land, they require you to put something in that grant that says you will not allow ATV use on this property. So it's just like a dead issue. But I don't, you know, it'd be interesting to ask about speed limits.
Like,
Is that something that they would be willing to support us on, or are they gonna say, no, we don't agree with those? Who knows? Because I think you can limit engine size, and then you might be able to do the actual
So
speed.
you can limit engine size, or you can say there's no electric, it's all
Right,
electric.
well, yeah, you can limit engines completely, which some
Yeah.
places have done.
Which,
That won't
that would
engines.
cause all kinds of problems.
Yes,
But we also, at the same point, don't need,
No.
a boat on that lake with a 200 horsepower motor.
Hmm.
We the town beach to the backside of the lake in 3 seconds.
But I feel bad, people complain about there not being a public boat launch, and it's like, on the one hand, I get it, but there's no, the lake is not what you think it is, it's hazardous. We would spend $100,000 a year just dealing with the fallout from,
Right.
you have to restrict it to residents only, I don't know how you could do it.
Total,
There'd be a lot of buoys knocking rocks.
no kidding.
If we wanna pay for a 24/7 manned whatever,
Could we like just rent the town boat?
this isn't the facility for it, I don't think. It's not,
It's got oars, there's no motor on it.
I was gonna say, do we have a town boat?
Yeah, it's a road.
Supposedly back in the day, if you lived on Taft, it was in your deed and you had a key to that gate before it was the beach or something. And you had to sign some document. I remember reading about that.
Interesting.
I will reach out to the, couple of EPOs and see what they have to say about that. Aside from that, anything else? I have a couple of things from that meeting we had in November, just to
Yeah, it was
touch
odd.
on. One being, is there a way to add the members of the Lake Task Force to your newsletter from the Lake Nipmuc Association so we can see what's going on?
I think, why not?
Like Concom, or we get the physical now, maybe.
I could email them.
Let's get the physical, because I don't get the task force information.
I think I got it. Mail.
What do you mean, is that
Doesn't come
mail?
out all the time.
Is it mailed or is it email?
There's a flyer they send out twice a year, but I think Catherine Hackinson set up like an
Yeah,
email
she
group.
was- Yeah.
I can email her. So you want, I can have her add the distribution list. That'd be fast.
He was on this conversation in November, why didn't we talk about it then, Dan?
I honestly don't remember. That's my bad.
And then we
You
talked
don't get
about it
this
a little
one
bit
either.
before as well, as that public outreach for, wildlife around the lake.
We
Sorry,
do now, right?
I believe so, yeah.
you get Metamon Gov now?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm gonna have her just add this link, there's a distribution list for the task force. I don't have your email, if you wanna give it to me, I can add it too, but we can do that. And do you get your town email?
Yes,
Okay. So then that would cover everybody. And then I can, if you don't already get the emails from her,
Yeah, do you have a piece of paper? I'll write it down for you.
yeah, if you want.
Just because it's long.
I think you could add Concom.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think I might have kept them.
We haven't looked into that drain that we discussed at Old Taft Ave. The landowner made a drain and there was discussion about it not working anymore, but I said we'd look into it, but then the weather happened.
Is that the one we were looking at? One that was called and it was put in and strained into the lake?
One Old Taft Ave, when we talked about it.
Yeah.
That's
right,
right, no,
yeah.
we were 10, I believe.
We? Was that before me?
Conservation.
That might be before me.
Might have been.
I haven't looked into anything.
There's supposedly an old, it's like a homeowner made catch basin that was made, and then it was like almost an above ground channel that ran to the lake, but it's all filled in and not working anymore. And we talked about it at the meeting in November, and having the highway department look into it and see if it's worth rejuvenating this thing so that it's doing what it's supposed to.
There's been a couple of different issues on Taft Ave. There was one of the gentlemen had water running in front of his property and it was creating a problem for his lawn. There's another gentleman that built a new house and somehow or other connected to a pipe that's draining into the lake.
Oh,
It's
what was he draining?
just, I believe it's his roof runoff,
Oh,
but
Yeah.
he's still not supposed to do
no,
that.
no, but I just was wondering what
Don't
he was
even-
talking about.
I mean, you're not supposed to do that, period, never mind it,
Right.
like,
Right. I was thinking septic, like, when you said that.
There's-
That's what comes to my head first.
That's what's nice about having the lake association keep an eye on the lake, because they can inform us of what they see, and then we can, because we're not on the lake all the time. I mean, unless we drive by it, we don't see it.
I'm looking at it every day.
aren't you lucky?
I am.
That is a nice view.
I drove by it like 4 times a day.
Just a couple.
So you haven't looked at it, sorry.
No, I have not yet. I do have it in my notes to look at, but I just haven't yet.
And that might be an area, maybe I said this last time, that if there was a cost, it might be something to see if the CPA could pay for that, because it's more of a public thing. You know, if there's some structure that needs to be redesigned.
And just a couple other things I have on here, so I'm trying to rack my brain on the conversation with this, but imperial drainage. What do we talk about with that?
Imperial Chevrolet.
I think it might tie into, that there's some drain that, was it Imperial, or was it just everything under 16 that was coming in the lake?
I want to say it was
I
16.
think you're talking, are you talking about 45?
No, he's talking, that was blamed on Dunkin' Donuts. I remember that, there was a conversation about the water that goes down Route 16 and comes out at the lake, and it was supposedly coming from Dunkin' Donuts, not the dealerships.
Water from.
All the way from Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh my God.
How do they even determine that?
When was this, recently or a while ago?
Several years ago.
Well, because their septic system failed and had to be redone. I know that probably was.
Yeah, so I seem to think it was, we were talking about across the street and everything draining.
Yeah, I know.
I've found some paperwork for that site being called Imperial, but it's just because it's owned by Route 85.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, because there is a pipe, the wetland, the bordering wetland empties under the road.
Right aside of, the steakhouse? Or am I on the spot?
We were talking about,
Oh,
we
you
were
guys are
talking right
45.
across from Old Taft Ave.
If we're
Right.
talking about,
Oh, okay,
Right.
two different locations, I'm sorry about that.
I don't know which one you're talking about for Imperial.
I think with the discussion, and this, just like I said, I just put a bullet point in here, imperial drainage, but I vaguely remember talking about what's going on across the street from
Ratscape.
Ave and the drain, and everything draining
Yeah.
off.
The site that's continued. And I'm like,
So this is
Oh,
45 Oxford Road.
yeah, 45 Oxford Ridge.
Just remember you're recording.
Yeah, sorry. There are plans to have a remediation plan for the bordering vegetated wetland and Lake Nipmuc in the drier months. We're discussing a date deadline, so they have aired the offer of dredging if it comes to that, but I think that would be a whole can of worms as well.
No,
But, yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's on my radar, if it is that drainage pipe you're talking about.
I'm thinking that we'd have to get a call Bob Moth again and ask him. I think it was all tied into everything over there.
Yeah, he was the one that was talking about it, and he's in Florida.
I mean, maybe that's an opportunity to, work with them if there's work to be done to improve all of this drainage, I don't know.
Because it would, they have some sediment runoff, but also Route 16 runoff. So it'll be
Yeah.
hard for them to
I mean,
determine who's what.
I'd like to take them at face value that their goal is to improve things and whatever, and maybe that's the conversation to, is there something that can be done?
I've walked over with the site manager, I've walked over to the Lake Nipmuc side, so I have some evidence from that, but I don't know whose property it is we walk over on.
Well, I think that the part of the problem is this whole area, there's a lot of dated structures and things that are at best aging and at worst failed, and
It's not just there, that's the whole
It's just
town.
not getting any better.
Because there is a drainage hole right at that site. It goes under Route 16 and comes out directly in the lake.
On which side of the arena? They're near the arena, right?
Where they're blasting the rock ledge.
Yeah.
What's secondhand?
Right about where the guardrail stands.
Also listen.
Or is it up
So
here?
if you can pull up the guardrail on there, you'll,
And
you'll have
they're
a,
well, the streams,
So-
I think,
on this side.
because it's all.
So when you go down here,
Well,
you keep going.
Over here.
So right above, right above, right in this low spot right
I
here.
don't know,
They don't have any approved,
I
they don't
didn't-
have approved plans.
I didn't hear anything about it, I just kept.
I didn't know that's what they were doing.
What are they doing?
That.
It was in the new zoning regulations, so that's the long-term idea, but they don't have any plans forward for that yet.
They're waiting for us all to fall asleep or something.
If they keep hammering, you're not gonna fall asleep.
Sneak into it, it's really crazy, yeah.
I think they're pointing out, John, where they know hammering's not working, so they're in the process of getting, permits for,
Blasting.
Yeah.
It'll be better.
Well, but won't it be done?
That's
Like
why I
blast
said, blow it up
down.
and be done with it.
It'll be, it won't be
It's not
just
that.
one-time blasting, it'll be
Yeah, because that whole thing is
here and
ledge.
then again, and then again, not
But if
like.
you heard that,
right, there's several spots that they
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm not, I've never dealt with it.
I can hear it.
I'd rather have
My
blasting.
Where do you live?
Nowhere near
Just
just,
before, you go into Hopedale.
I can hear it in my house in the middle of the road.
I live across the.
I'm like, so,
it's something about the lake, it just.
Yeah, it makes
Are your
sense.
dishes doing okay?
It's
So
just,
far, so good.
Yeah, take pictures of everything.
well, when they blast, they supposed, they go door to door, they're supposed to do all these surveys.
They
and
just
blast
test the
surveys.
foundation.
things.
you got nothing else? Anybody else got anything?
Just meeting date.
Yeah, but I was looking at that, I mean, we're, typically, we were talking third Tuesday of the month, but that put us 3 weeks from tonight, and I don't think that's necessary. That's my opinion, what does everybody else think?
Yeah, unless something comes up, we could wait till March,
I was gonna say, we wait till March, and we're looking at March 19th.
March 19th.
It'll give
Is
you
it on the
a chance
schedule?
to find out more about the
Okay,
water
it
monitoring
is,
and water
I'll
level
wait till
equipment.
next. And I'll
Just
try,
set a
to-
reminder right now, text on.
I'll try.
Well, if you get this email, I can send it to you
Okay, all right,
personally
good.
too,
Thank you.
as a backup. I'll, I should do that, as a placeholder.
Adjourning.
The motion.
Oh, I'm motioning to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I'm hungry.
Favor?
Alright.
I
Opposed?
Thank you.
Killing me.